I remember there's been a couple of times throughout my, I'd say adult, even teenage times where I would start working out for the first time in a long, long time. When I say long time, I mean like years, where I hadn't done anything. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do push-ups. And I'm like, I remember a long time ago I could do, 50 push-ups or whatever in a row consecutively. And I would start to do, and I'd get to about 10, and my elbows, I'd be like shaking a bit, like, what's happening? I could do 50 a year ago, I could do 50. What's happening? And your body, my body just wouldn't allow it. And so I'd be like, okay, 15, that's good. And then I'd be like, okay, the next day I'd try it again. I'd be able to get to 17. And then the next time I'd get to 20. And then as I'd move, I'd be like, I'm pushing myself to 25. And I get to 25. And then as you continue on and as you stay, aggressive with it, you can build up your muscle to be able to do those things. And I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that, or maybe you're a runner, or maybe you don't do anything athletic whatsoever. There are times where I've run and it feels like, and I don't know if you have experienced this maybe, but like you run for the very first time, and especially outside or in a gym, and you're like, why does it feel like my lungs are on fire and bleeding? Like something is wrong with me. Should my lungs feel like I can taste blood? Something's wrong. I don't know if anyone's like, is this me? Am I the only person that's ever done that? Awesome. All right, well, it's me. Maybe I do have something wrong with me if no one else is experiencing that. All right. So, but anyway, the reason why I bring these things up is because through pain and bleeding in your lungs, it shapes us into something greater. The more I practice doing push-ups, well, first of all, the more tone I can get muscle-wise, but the longer I can go doing push-ups, the more strength I build up. Same with running. I can run for a mile, and then eventually, as I keep practicing, I can get up to 2 miles, 3 miles, and soon enough, I might start thinking I can run a half marathon, which I've done, and that was the dumbest thing I've ever done in my life. I won't be doing that again. But history is full of stories of people who have struggled through life, and scars have formed, and through those scars, a foundation for a remarkable achievement occurs. One of my favorite stories of all time, and I remember hearing this, and I was like shocked. There's a pitcher, a Major League Baseball pitcher. He's retired now, but his name was Billy Wagner. And I had to re-look up the story because I want to make sure I gave you guys an accurate thing, because I know some of you might check my sources. But Billy Wagner, he's a lefty. He threw like 98 miles an hour. And for those of you that don't know baseball, that's gas. That's fast. Okay, 98 miles an hour. And he was a lefty. And I remember hearing in a telecast, like when he was pitching for the Astros or something, someone said, yeah, when he was a kid, he was right-handed. And he taught himself how to throw left-handed because he broke his arm. And he wanted to play sports so bad that he wanted to not stop playing baseball. So he broke his right arm and said, okay, well, I'll just learn to throw left-handed. And I thought in my head, wow. Because for fun, I've taken a ball and thrown with my left hand, and it's like I have a problem. Like something's wrong with me. Like it doesn't do the same thing that my right arm does. It just doesn't work. I'm not ambidextrous, okay? And so I read this story, and he not only broke his arm once. So this is how this story actually went. He broke his arm, and then he started, and then you have to wait 3 or 6 months, and then you have to kind of rehab it as a kid. He broke his arm, got his cast off. He hadn't learned to throw right-handed yet, or throw left-handed. He broke his arm, got his cast off, and the kid who fell on him and broke his arm, they started playing football again, and he broke his arm immediately. After he broke his right arm, he broke that same arm immediately. And so he was out for a long time for the 2 breaks, and so during that long break time, he learned how to throw it. And it was through those scars and foundation, he retaught himself how to throw, and it got him all the way into the major leagues. One of the best closers that I've ever seen pitch. And there's other stories. I remember hearing another story of this girl. I was at a conference, and she came up on stage, and she started signing to the crowd. And there was an interpreter, and she was in her mid-20s, but she told a story that when she was 17 years old, she was a very talented singer. And when she was 17 years old, she started losing her hearing. Her hearing started to go. And she became deaf. After a short amount of time, she had a degenerative problems with her eardrums and things like that, and so she went deaf. And she had to reteach herself. She was in that was who she wanted to be. She defined herself as a singer, and that was her desire, and God had taken this away from her. And so she thought her life was over. She's like, I have nothing else in life. There's nothing else. This is what I wanted to be in life. And so one day, she was just sitting there, and someone was playing instruments at her house and stuff, and she had her shoes off, and she could feel the beats in the floor. And she just started to sing. And the most amazing thing happened that even though she's deaf and can't hear anything, she has perfect pitch and could hear, understand it, and she feels everything through the ground. And she's able to sing this perfect song, and she was on America's Got Talent. Mandy Harvey is her name. But I saw her way before she was on America's Got Talent, and I was blown away then, and then to see how much she blew away Simon Cowell and the bald guy, I can't remember his name, who doesn't like to be touched by anybody. Anyway, and to see that. And so again, these people who have overcome such difficult obstacles in their life, and through the hard times, the times of wanting to quit, times of not wanting to move forward, just to say, my life is terrible, my life stinks, I'm done with this. This is a total garbage set of cards that I've been dealt by God, and I want to move on to something else. I'm done with you. They've overcome these obstacles. And today we pick up through our Journey Detours series of the life of Joseph, and we pick up from his mistreatment in Genesis chapter 41. So that's where we're going to be today, Genesis chapter 41. And if you remember, last week we talked about being mistreated, and just a quick recap, Joseph interprets the dream of the cupbearer and the baker, okay? The butler and the baker. And he tells them their dreams, and he tells the cupbearer, who has the good dream, he tells them that, hey, remember me when you go to Pharaoh. When you're back in Pharaoh's court, remember me. Tell them about me, because I'm stuck in this prison, and I've been a slave. I've been wrongfully accused. Remember me. Tell them about me. Then if you go to chapter 41, verse 1, it says, he was there for 2 more years. 2 more years. Could you imagine how he would have felt as he kind of has a glimmer of hope? Like, oh, I could do this really good thing for the cupbearer. I can help him out. God's going to use me, and then maybe this is the path. Maybe this is the door that God is opening for me to have in the release, because I know that God's got a plan for my life, and maybe this is it. I can see that, and so that's why I think Joseph says that. Joseph kind of takes things in his own hands, and he says, tell Pharaoh about me. Okay? He's trying to make it happen for himself. And then he's in prison for 2 more years. And just the struggle that he must have endured through that time. It can easily deter any of our plans when we have to wait in a situation for so long. And I wonder how many of you, and if you saw my Facebook post about this message, I wonder how many of us struggle with this fear. And if you're like me, I struggle with this all the time. And it's the fear of abandonment, feeling abandoned. And I wonder what Joseph felt like as he sat in prison for more than 2 years. This was just 2 years after the cupbearer situation. But he was in there for 2 years and just wondering, God, where are you? What? You showed me this dream when I was 17 years old, that people would bow down to me, that my family would bow down to me, that people would honor me, people would respect me, and that I would be like in charge. And what has happened? I've been enslaved, wrongfully accused, beaten, thrown in prison, and like left alone. Left alone. God, where have you been? And I know a lot of us, there are times in our lives that we feel like we're the last person wanted. That we're going to be alone our whole life. That we're going to be left, and that no one really cares about us. And we have this fear, and I think that's one of Satan's biggest tools, is that he wants us to feel alone and isolated. Even though we're created to love each other, and as humans, sometimes we don't do it on purpose, but because of our selfishness, sometimes we forget about other people needing to feel loved, and we just kind of focus on ourselves a little bit. We're not like purposely trying to be mean to anyone else. We just are focusing on our own self because we're naturally selfish people. That's part of the fall. We naturally care about ourselves more than we care about others at times. And I know that you all have experienced this, but even if I go back to your days on the recess, wherever you grew up at recess, not being picked for a team or being picked last, which That never happened to me. But no, I'm kidding. I remember growing up in that neighborhood over there on the other side of the Saddle Club, our neighborhood was full of older kids, and we would have baseball and basketball games, and I was like a 6 or 7-year-old. I was always picked last. Always picked last. So I know how it feels in feeling like I'm not wanted. And even as an adult, there's multiple times where I've not been included to other gatherings. People would have gatherings and do things, and they would invite me, and I would kind of process that. And Megan and I have struggled with that multiple times in our marriage, that how come we're never invited to certain things? And it's a lot of its time is because that they know we wouldn't enjoy what they're doing. They're doing something that they either it cause them to feel guilty by me being there, and you're right, that they're right. I wouldn't enjoy it. I like being around people and stuff like that, but they know I wouldn't participate in it, the stuff that they're doing, and so they just don't invite us out of like a courtesy thing. But it still, regardless, hurts because it feels like you're not wanted. And I think church families don't do a good enough job of loving each other so that never happens. But this fear of abandonment is something that I think a lot of us struggle with. A lot of people all across the world struggle with this. So Joseph is in prison for 2 more years. Much worse than not being picked for a dodgeball game or a basketball game on the recess. Or maybe if you were an athlete, maybe you were in the group projects that they used to do and you're the last one to be picked for a group project. Like no one wanted you in a group project. Maybe that's more of your cup of tea. But we all don't desire. So if you look at Joseph's life, though, and what he struggled with, it's so unfair. It's so unfair what Joseph had to go through. I mean, again, I said this last week, we don't see that he was a bad person. And again, I talked about last week that even though some people deserve kind of what they have coming to them, and in our minds, we kind of want to see that. It's built into us. We want to see justice happen to people. Like, hey, you deserve to be punished for what you did. And that's kind of built into us, even though that's not the desire God wants for us. He wants us to love and to show His grace, and we've experienced His grace, and so He wants us to be people of grace, not people of justice and judgment. But as I look at Joseph's life and don't see anything really bad that he's ever done, I think, man, this is unfair. Like what he had to endure, man, that's unfair. And some might look at that as I do, but God calls it testing. The testing time of his life, and it's the refiner's fire. And so this time, as we look at it as this is unfair for Joseph to have to go through this, when sinful Pharaoh and other people are doing stuff, and they're the ones that should be punished by God, not Joseph, who hasn't really done anything bad in his life. And so that's ours, but we have to stop looking at it through the lenses of a secular world. We have to stop looking at it through the lenses of people who are a part of this world and look at it through the lenses of people who are children of God. Okay? And we have to look at the hard times and difficult times of our life that we go through, like Joseph went through, not as him being punished and something he didn't deserve, but that God's love is refining him for something down the road. He's preparing him for something greater that maybe he never even imagined. Because remember, God has already revealed to Joseph his plan for him. God's already told Joseph, you're going to be in charge. You're going to be in charge. People are going to bow down to you. And so this is all a part of a process. This is a proof of what I'm trying to tell you, that this was all a refiner. He's refining Joseph, getting him prepared, making sure the pathway is perfectly straight, and Joseph is prepared for whatever God has in store for him. And we find out here shortly what that is. You might say, so as Joseph is in prison, Joseph is maturing. He's being strengthened. He's being perfected in God's image. He's being shaped for greatness. And, I've dabbled in cooking a lot of times, and there's always times, we're always fast-paced cookers. I think most of us are like, especially if you're a younger crowd, you're a fast-paced cooker. You want it quick. And whenever it ever tells me as I'm cooking, especially bread products, it's like, let it rest. Why? I don't get a rest. Let me get this done. I just want to get it done. But it says like rest the dough or the meat. Like when you whatever, I can't think of the word, marinate or stuff. You got to let it rest. I was thinking of brine or whatever. Let it rest. Let it sit in there. And I'm like, no, what? No. Shoot it in there and let's be done and let's cook it. Let's get, like, come on, let's do this. But it's always like, you have to rest, and we always want to skip ahead. We want to skip to the finished product in our lives, and that's what God is doing to Joseph. And I'm sure Joseph wanted to skip ahead. And a lot of times in our life when we struggle, let me skip to the end product that I know you're going to give me. I don't want to wait. I don't want to rest. I don't want to do the thing that you want me to do. I want to get to the end. But that's the problem with a lot of us, is that we're impatient. And God is telling us to be patient because His plan is good and perfect. Everyone that God uses greatly has found the necessity of being alone in His presence. It's God wants to do something great with us, but we have to be with God. We have to be alone, and a lot of times He needs to remove us from the pride of man. He has to remove us from our current situation in order for us to hear Him and to experience Him, for Him to change us and do stuff. And so a lot of times we go through difficult times so He can kind of almost isolate us so that He can have that one-on-one encounter. Because just think about your life. How many of you go from point A to point B, point C, point D, and then you're like already in bed at night, and you're like, whoa, man, I didn't do anything for myself. I mean, like, it was just constantly, oh, God, you are there. I'm sorry. I just spent like all day and never even thought about you one time. Never thought about you one time because I was so busy. And sometimes God has to knock us off our horse in order to get our attention. And He loves us that much that He's willing to do that. So when the tests come for you and when life is unfair for you, what do we do? I know a lot of people when I've experienced that, and I did this early on in life. I may still do it at times, but a lot of us cry foul. We go tell mommy or daddy or whoever your best friend is or whoever, and we tell them that I'm going through this. This is a terrible time. Why am I going through this? Why is everything bad always happen to me? And we cry foul. And this is unfair. We think it's unfair. We think it's not right. And you know what? If we think from a justice standpoint and judgment, yeah, it probably isn't fair. You probably don't deserve it compared to other people in this world who have done terrible things. You're right. But again, we got to come back to the point that if we're going through it, God desires us to endure it. God is going to do something through those hard, difficult times. And not do what most people do is they run away and they blame God and they quit and to make life easier. God is usually always thought out as the punisher. God is doing this to punish me. I've done something wrong. I've been bad, and God is punishing me for something I've done, or I don't understand why I'm going through this hard, difficult time. And God is saying, I have a plan for your life. This is in preparation. This is preparing you for something that if you don't go through this, you can't experience the fullness of what I have planned for your life. And I've experienced that in my life. I have experienced that. That it's through the hard, difficult times in life that God prepares us and gets us ready for what He has in store for our life. I love this morning. Things went really not very well as far as technology goes. Who cares? Who cares? It doesn't matter whatsoever in the grand scheme of anything. And I'm just like excited about like laughing about this in the future. Like laughing about, oh yeah, you guys remember how things never went right and how things are like, wow, just look at where we've come from and where we've been and had to go through that difficult times or whatever in order for good times to happen. And God is notorious for that. And we need to pause in the difficult times of our lives and let the vision of what God is doing become clear in our minds. So instead of saying, God, why are you doing this to me? Say, God, what do you want to tell me? What do you want to show me? What do you want to change in me through this time? Because I know I have faith in you. I know who you are. You've revealed to me through Scripture who you are, and I've experienced your goodness to me, and so now I'm going through something difficult. So show me what it is you want to talk to me about today. Show me what you want me to change and surrender your life to that. And God will reveal Himself to you, and He's faithful in that. And remember that there's a reason why Jesus, they call Jesus Emmanuel. Remember at Christmas? Emmanuel, God with us. That God is always with us. That He's always with us no matter how much time. Remember, Abraham waited 100 years for the birth of Isaac. And Moses waited 80 years. And Noah waited 120 years before it started to rain as he was fixing up the ark. 120 years. And Joseph spent 13 years in slavery, bondage, and prison before God fulfilled his promise in his life. 13 years. Some of us can't go a week or a day. We freak out in a day when things don't go right for us, according to our plan. Could you imagine just waiting 13 years? 13 years through a difficult journey of life. 13 years. But I love it. This is the best part of it, is that Joseph remained faithful. Joseph remained faithful. How long could we be faithful? If you're a follower of Christ this morning, testing times do not mean God has forgotten you. It means he is shaping you for something significant. If you are not going through testing times in your life and things are good, I would wonder if you need to pray and ask God, are you preparing me for anything? God, what do you have in store for my life? I want to be prepared. I want to be tested. I want to be made refined so that I can do something significant for you. I want to do something significant for you. And God wants to turn us into something that can do something amazing for his kingdom. And I know a lot of us run from difficult times. We're like, oh, no, please. Don't make me go through anything difficult. Please, I've been through hard times. I don't want to experience difficult. But if it means that he's preparing you for the next step, welcome it. How as hard as that might be, welcome it. Because he's going to be with you. He's going to be with you. And he's going to grow you. He just needs us to submit. He needs us to surrender to it. So there's a turning point in this story, as I'm going to kind of wrap up here. A turning point for Joseph is Pharaoh starts having dreams. Now remember, Joseph's way did not lead to his freedom, right? Joseph, tell Pharaoh about me. That didn't lead to his freedom. But Pharaoh had a dream 2 years later, another crazy dream. This is the story of dreams. And he had this crazy dream about this bad sick cow who eats the healthy cows, and there's 7 cows, and there's grain, and same thing. And all the meaning comes to that. There's going to be famines. And so Pharaoh has these terrible dreams, and Pharaoh goes to his advisors, and he's like, magicians and everyone, all these people. He's like, please tell me what these dreams mean, because it's keeping me up. It's terrifying. And the other night, I think I told my mother-in-law, I had this crazy dream the other night where I was like coughing up bugs. It was disgusting. And like I woke up like touching my throat, like something is wrong with me. What is wrong? And I know if you look up dream interpretation, everything is anxiety. Like everything. Your teeth are breaking in your mouth, anxiety. You can't, whatever, anxiety, whatever. And everything is anxiety or guilt or something like that. And so I'm like coughing up bugs and I'm like freaking out. I probably just watched a bad movie. But anyway, so I'm coughing up bugs and like freaked me out. And I got up and I checked on my kids and I went back to sleep. And then right before I lay down my head, and I was like, God, please don't let me have that dream again. Please don't let me have that dream again. And so, but anyway, Pharaoh's having these terrible dreams, and he asks for people to interpret it, but no one can. And does anyone know why no one could interpret the dreams? Because they were all scared to death of dying. Because if you were wrong in your interpretation, Pharaoh would kill you or throw you in prison. So we're all scared to death to take a shot in the dark trying to interpret these dreams where cows are eating each other and, all this different stuff. And so they say no, and all of a sudden the cupbearer goes, I remember a guy who saved my life. And he interpreted my dream and told me everything that was going to happen. And Pharaoh said, bring him up. So Pharaoh brought up Joseph, and Joseph came up. And I love Joseph's response. Let me read it to you, verse 14 and 16. Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once, and he was quickly brought from the prison. After he shaved and changed his clothes, he went in and stood before Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell me what it means, but I have heard that when you hear about a dream, you can interpret it. And Joseph says this, it is beyond my power to do this, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease. Talk about humility. Talk about humility and what God had taught him. Do you remember Joseph had a dream at the very beginning, when he was 17 years old, and Joseph didn't know what it meant. And so this new dream interpretation, this new respect and understanding his relationship with God has developed. And where do you think it developed? Through the 13 years of being in bondage and in prison. That this honor and respect for God, this relationship, not codependent, but this relationship that Joseph had with God, and just saying God gets all the glory. This is a guy who just came out of prison, that was in prison for 13 years, and he immediately, it's like, God will do this for you, and he'll put your mind at ease if this is what you want in your life. There's no manipulation or plot that Joseph has. Could you imagine when the cupbearer said this, and he comes up, and as soon as he interprets this dream for Pharaoh, and Pharaoh goes, I'm going to put you in charge of all things. You're going to be second in command, which is what happens. He interprets a dream, and he gives him advice on what he should do. You need to collect grain for 7 years, because the harvest is going to be great for 7 years, and then there's going to be the worst famine you've ever seen. So collect grain, and Pharaoh goes, there's no one that's wiser than you. You've interpreted my dream. You've given me the information I need to save my people. You're going to be second in command over all of Egypt. What do you think the cupbearer thought? Oh, no. I forgot about this guy for 2 years. I'm dead. What do you think Potiphar thought? I sent this guy to prison, which I probably, as we talked about earlier, probably knew his wife was guilty in that she was the one who did it. I'm dead. Well, how about Potiphar's wife? What she thought? Oh, my word. Well, what about Joseph's brothers? The fear, of course they don't know, they find out later on, but the fear these people must have had. But Joseph gives God all the glory, and he has not changed whatsoever. Why? Because God had refined him and prepared him because of the struggles and the battles that he endured during those 13 years. That if he hadn't gone through those times, as he was a 17-year-old, oh, look at me, I'm in my nice pretty coat, and I'm father's favorite, and you guys are all the hard workers. I don't have to do anything, and God's blessed my life, and all this, yes. And if he wouldn't have gone through that, he would have been this stuck-up Joseph guy who God has blessed and has never had to do anything hard in his life whatsoever. But because of what God did and how God spoke to him, God was able to use him and prepare him for what God had in store, to make him second in command. And there's a reason why Joseph had to become second in command. It was all, again, it's not just for Joseph's benefit, but it's for God's plan for his people. And we'll learn about that next week. But Nate and Jessica are going to come up, and my question is, for all of you, is, do you trust God or do you panic? When difficult times come your way and you're going through hard, difficult situations in your life, which we all go through, is your first instinct panic or blame or woe is me? God, why are you doing this to me? Or is it, God, refine me, make me, mold me in your image. Make me who you want me to be, because I know you've got great plans for my life, and I know you're going to do something amazing in my life. So I'm prepared, how much it might hurt, the blood in my lungs from running so I can run farther in the future. Whatever that pain might be, I want to endure it because I know that you have a good plan for my life, and I know I want to submit to your power and your authority because I have faith, and I love you, and you love me even more than I could possibly love you. So I want it. I will accept it, whatever it might be. I will accept it so that I can be everything that you want me to be. That's our desire. So that's my question to all of you today. And if you don't know Jesus this morning, the trials and the troubles that you have in your life are just God simply saying, hey, come to me. It's as you're walking through life, he'll put trials in your life and he just turns your face to him. That's what he's trying to do. He's just trying to turn your face to him so that you'll accept him and that you'll know him. And so I want to encourage you this morning that if you don't know him, I encourage you to surrender your life to him and run to him. Run to his plans. Run to him have a relationship with him. And this morning, if you know him, look at the hard times, the difficult times as God is going to do something amazing. God is going to do something amazing. It's like, I remember in football, like high school football and college, everything, sport I've ever played, you condition like crazy and you hate it. It's terrible. No one likes it. But it's preparing you so at the end of the season, you can outrun everybody. you can outrun everyone, you can play harder, you can play faster, you do all the things so you can be better. Okay, you condition your body for those things, and that's what God is doing. He's conditioning us, conditioning our spirit, conditioning our mind, maybe even physically, conditioning us to be ready for His good and wonderful plan